Hi, my name is Kate, and I wrote this story from the bottom of my heart. If you subscribe to the channel, you help me keep bringing new stories like this one. Thank you so much. The forest smelled like rain and rotting leaves when they left me there. I can still hear my father's voice, flat and final, telling me I had 3 days to prove I could survive the winter hunt, or I shouldn't bother coming back. My mother didn't even turn around. My brother laughed. The sound echoed between the trees long after their footsteps faded into silence. I stood there, 17 years old, wearing a coat 2 sizes too big and boots that leaked, watching my family disappear into the mist like I had never existed at all. They called it a rite of passage. I called it what it was, abandonment. Our family had always been hunters, not the kind who posed with rifles for photographs, but the kind who knew which mushrooms would kill you and which ones would save your life. The kind who could read animal tracks in the dark and predict storms by the way the birds flew. My father taught my brother these things. He taught me how to stay quiet and out of the way. When my brother brought home his first deer at 15, they roasted it for 3 days and invited the whole village. When I turned 15, they handed me a knife and told me I was soft. Useless. A waste of good food. So here I was, alone in the Thornwood Forest in late November, with nothing but that dull knife, a half-empty canteen, and the weight of every cruel word they'd ever said pressing down on my chest. The first night, I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against a tree, listening to things move in the darkness, things that sounded too big, too close, too aware of how weak I was. Every crack of a branch made my heart slam against my ribs. Every distant howl reminded me that I was prey now. By the second day, hunger felt like a living thing gnawing at my stomach. I found a stream and drank until I felt sick. I tried to catch fish with my hands like I'd seen my brother do once, but they slipped through my fingers like mockery. I ate wild berries I was 70% sure wouldn't kill me. 70% felt like good odds when you were this hungry. That night, the snow started. It came down soft at first, almost beautiful, coating the world in white silence. Then the wind picked up, and beautiful became deadly. I had no shelter, no fire. I'd tried for 2 hours to start one and failed. My hands too numb and clumsy to make the sparks catch. I walked because stopping felt like dying. My feet left small, pathetic tracks in the fresh snow, tracks that screamed easy target to anything watching. That's when I heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the wind or the trees. A low, pained whine that made something deep in my chest twist with recognition. Not recognition of the sound itself, but of the feeling behind it, suffering, loneliness, the desperate knowledge that no one was coming. I should have kept walking. Every survival instinct I had screamed at me to leave it alone, to save myself, to remember that I was barely surviving and had nothing to give. But I'd spent 17 years being invisible, being unwanted, being the thing people left behind. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk past that sound and become the same kind of person who had left me here to freeze. I followed the whining through the trees, my breath coming out in white clouds, my hands shaking. From cold or fear, I couldn't tell anymore. I found him in a clearing. The wolf was massive, bigger than any I'd ever seen in the hunter's records or the village warnings. His fur was black as midnight, silver-tipped like frost, and matted with blood. A trap, old, rusted, vicious, had clamped around his front leg, the kind of trap that had been illegal for 20 years, but still littered these woods like buried secrets. He should have been terrifying. He should have lunged at me, all teeth and survival instinct. Instead, he just watched me with eyes that were too intelligent, too aware. Golden eyes that seemed to look straight through my fear into something deeper. "Hey," I whispered, my voice cracking from disuse and cold. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." Stupid thing to say to a wolf, especially when I was the one who looked like easy prey. Shivering, small, human. But he didn't growl, didn't bare his teeth. He just kept watching me with those impossible golden eyes, his breath coming in short, pained gasps. I'd seen my brother set traps like this. I knew how they worked. I also knew that getting close enough to open one meant putting my hands near the mouth of a predator who could tear my throat out before I could scream. My father's voice echoed in my head. Stupid girl. Soft. Useless. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was about to die doing something idiotic for a creature that would kill me the second it was free. But I was already dying out here, slowly, coldly, alone. At least this way I'd die trying to do something that mattered. "I'm going to help you," I said, more to myself than to him. "Please don't eat me." I dropped to my knees in the snow. It soaked through my pants immediately. Ice-cold water against my skin. The wolf tensed, his muscles coiling, and for a second I thought he would bolt, or attack, but he didn't. He stayed perfectly still, those golden eyes locked on mine. The trap was worse up close. I could see where the metal teeth had bitten through fur and flesh, see the dark blood staining the snow beneath him. My hands were so numb I could barely feel my fingers, but I forced them to work, searching for the release mechanism. "I've got you," I whispered, though I wasn't sure I did. "I've got you." The wolf made a sound, low, almost like a rumble, and I felt it vibrate through the frozen ground. My fingers found the release. It was stiff, rusted, fighting me. I pulled with strength I didn't know I had, strength born from pure stubborn refusal to fail at this one thing. The trap opened with a metallic shriek. The wolf pulled his leg free immediately, stumbling back, and I threw myself backward too, expecting him to run or to turn that pain and fear into violence. He did neither. He stood there, three-legged, trembling, watching me with an expression I couldn't name. Something that looked almost like recognition, gratitude, understanding. "Go," I said, my voice shaking. "Go before something worse finds you." He didn't move. We stared at each other across 3 feet of blood-stained snow, predator and prey. Both of us abandoned by our worlds, both of us too stubborn to die quietly. Then he did something that would haunt me for days. He bowed his head. Not a submission. Nothing about this creature felt submissive. But an acknowledgement, a moment of respect between 2 survivors. And then he turned and limped into the darkness between the trees, silent as falling snow. I sat there in the cold, my hands covered in his blood. My heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest, and for the first time in 3 days, I felt something other than fear. I felt alive. I didn't know it then, but that moment, kneeling in the snow, freeing a wolf who should have killed me, was the moment everything changed. The storm got worse. I found a hollow beneath a fallen tree and crawled inside, pressing myself into the small space, trying to preserve what little warmth I had left. My hands were still shaking. I could still see those golden eyes in my mind. Sleep came in fragments, broken by wind and cold, and the distant sounds of the forest. When I woke, dawn was breaking through the trees in pale gray light, and lying across the entrance to my shelter, like a living wall between me and the frozen world, was the wolf. He was watching the forest with those impossible eyes, his injured leg tucked beneath him, his massive body blocking the wind, guarding me. My breath caught in my throat. This didn't make sense. Wolves didn't do this. Animals didn't do this. But when he turned his head and looked at me, I saw something in those golden eyes that made my heart stop and restart in a different rhythm. Intelligence. Purpose. Choice. He had chosen to come back. He had chosen me. "Thank you," I whispered. He didn't respond. Of course he didn't. He was a wolf. But something in his gaze softened, just slightly, and I felt the weight of 3 days of loneliness lift just enough to let me breathe. I wasn't alone anymore, neither was he. And somewhere in the back of my mind, in that place where instinct lives deeper than thought, I knew that this moment would define everything that came after. I just didn't know how much. The wolf stayed with me for 3 days. 3 impossible reality-bending days where everything I thought I knew about the world quietly rearranged itself into something stranger and more beautiful than I could have imagined. He couldn't walk properly on his injured leg, but he could hunt. I woke that first morning to find a rabbit lying near the entrance of my shelter, still warm, its neck broken cleanly. No unnecessary violence, just survival. I'd never cleaned a kill before. My family never let me get that far. But hunger is a powerful teacher. My hands shook as I worked the dull knife through fur and flesh, trying not to think too hard about what I was doing. The wolf watched from a few feet away, his golden eyes patient, almost approving. No, That was crazy. He was an animal. Animals didn't approve or disapprove. Except he kept watching me like he understood exactly what this meant. That I was learning, surviving, becoming something other than the useless girl my family had abandoned. I managed to start a fire on the 4th try, using dried moss and bark stripped from a dead birch tree. When the first flame caught and held, I actually laughed, a sound that startled both of us. The wolf's ears perked forward, his head tilting slightly, and I swear something that looked like amusement flickered across his features. "Don't judge me," I told him, feeling only slightly insane for talking to a wolf. "This is a big deal." He made a sound that wasn't quite a growl, wasn't quite a huff, almost like a chuckle, if wolves could chuckle. I cooked the rabbit badly, half charred, half raw, but it was the best thing I'd ever tasted. I saved some for him, holding it out awkwardly, unsure of the etiquette for offering food to a predator who'd already eaten. He took it gently from my hand, his teeth never once touching my skin. That night, he slept curled against the opening of my shelter again, and I fell asleep with my hand resting on his shoulder, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. It should have terrified me, sleeping pressed against something that could kill me without effort. Instead, I felt safer than I had in years. On the 5th day, his leg was better. Not healed. The wound was still angry and red beneath the matted fur, but better. He could put weight on it, move without that heartbreaking limp, which meant he could leave. I woke that morning expecting him to be gone, expecting to find myself alone again, with nothing but the memory of golden eyes and impossible kindness. But he was there, sitting at the edge of the clearing, watching the sunrise paint the snow in shades of pink and gold. "You should go home," I said softly, standing in the entrance of my shelter. The words hurt to say, but they felt true. "Your pack. They must be worried about you." He turned to look at me, and something in his expression made my chest tighten. There was a weight in those eyes, ancient, sad, knowing. Like he understood exactly what I was saying and was trying to figure out how to make me understand something in return. He stood, shook himself gently, and walked toward me. I held my breath. He stopped a foot away, close enough that I could see the individual silver hairs mixed with the black, close enough to see the healing wound on his leg, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. Then he did something that made no sense at all. He pressed his forehead against my stomach, gentle and deliberate, and held it there. It felt like a promise, like a goodbye that wasn't really goodbye. Like he was trying to tell me something desperately important, in the only language available to him. "I don't understand," I whispered, my hand moving automatically to rest on his head, fingers tangling in that thick, soft fur. He pulled back, looked at me one more time with those impossible eyes, and then turned and ran into the forest. This time he didn't limp. He moved like liquid shadow, like poetry, like something that had never been wounded at all. And I stood there, alone again, with my heart breaking and soaring at the same time. I survived my 7 days, barely. When I walked out of the thornwood on the morning of the 8th day, half-starved and hollow-eyed, my father was waiting at the forest edge. He looked surprised to see me, disappointed maybe, that he hadn't been proven right about my weakness. "You made it," he said flatly. "I did." He looked me over, taking in the torn clothes, the scratches on my face, the way I held myself differently now. Less apologetic, less invisible. "Did you make a kill?" I thought about the rabbit, about the wolf who brought it to me, about everything I'd learned in those woods that had nothing to do with proving myself to people who'd never wanted me anyway. "I survived," I said. "That's what you asked for." Something flickered in his eyes, anger, maybe, that I wasn't grateful for his test, that I wasn't begging to be welcomed back into a family that had thrown me away. "Your room is still there," he said finally. "Not welcome home. Not we're glad you're safe, just a statement of fact. Thank you," I said, because I was too tired to fight, but as I walked past him toward the village, I knew something had fundamentally changed. The girl who went into those woods would have cried with relief at being allowed back, would have tried harder to be good enough, small enough, quiet enough. The woman walking out of those woods didn't care anymore. I'd learned I could survive alone. I'd learned that sometimes the monsters everyone warned you about were kinder than the family you were born into. I'd learned that I was stronger than anyone had ever given me credit for. Life in the village settled back into its familiar rhythm, but I moved through it, like a ghost. I did my chores, helped in the kitchens, kept my head down and my mouth shut. But at night, I dreamed of golden eyes and silver-tipped fur. I dreamed of the way the wolf had looked at me, like I mattered, like I was worth saving, worth protecting, worth staying for. 3 weeks after I returned, the dreams changed. I started seeing him in the darkness behind my eyelids, but not as a wolf, as a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, with black hair, and eyes that burned gold in the moonlight. He was calling to me, reaching for me, trying to tell me something I couldn't quite hear. I woke from these dreams, with my heart racing, and tears on my face, though I couldn't explain why I was crying. The village started talking about wolves. Reports came in from the northern farms. Livestock going missing, strange howls in the night, massive paw prints in the snow that were too big to belong to any normal wolf. My father organized hunting parties. My brother volunteered immediately, eager to prove himself against something actually dangerous. I kept my mouth shut and felt sick. 4 weeks after my return, on a night when the moon hung full and heavy in the sky, I couldn't sleep. Something was pulling at me, a feeling like a fishhook lodged behind my sternum, tugging me toward the forest. I tried to ignore it, tried to stay in bed, be sensible, be safe. But the pull got stronger, more insistent, almost painful. At midnight, I gave up. I dressed quietly, grabbed my coat, and slipped out of the house like a thief. The forest welcomed me back like an old friend. The trees seemed to lean in, creating paths where none had existed before. The moonlight painted everything in silver and shadow. I walked without knowing where I was going, letting that strange pull guide me deeper into the thornwood. And then I saw him. The wolf stood in a clearing ahead, massive and magnificent in the moonlight, but he wasn't alone. There were others with him, 6 more wolves, all huge, all watching me with eyes that gleamed in the darkness. I should have run, should have screamed. Instead, I walked forward, my heart pounding but my steps steady. The wolf, my wolf, because somehow I knew it was him, separated from the pack and came to meet me. We stood there, 3 feet apart, and I felt that same electricity from our first meeting crackling in the air between us. "I've been dreaming about you," I whispered. His ears perked forward. His tail, which had been still, began to move slowly. Not quite a wag, but something close. "I don't know what's happening," I continued, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "I don't know what you are, or why I feel like part of me is missing when you're not there." He moved closer, pressed his head against my stomach again, just like before, and this time I felt it, a warmth that spread from where he touched me, radiating through my entire body. Not painful, not frightening, just right. Like something clicking into place that had always been slightly off-kilter. When he pulled back, his eyes were different, more human, more haunted, and I knew, with absolute certainty that defied logic or reason, that this was no ordinary wolf. "What are you?" he turned, I breathed, looking back at his pack. They were watching us with an intensity that made my skin prickle, waiting for something. A signal, maybe. A decision. Then the wolf looked back at me, and in his golden eyes, I saw a question. "Will you trust me?" I'd already trusted him with my life once. In the snow, in the cold. When logic said I should have left him to die, I could do it again. "Yes," I said simply. He threw back his head and howled, a sound that shook the trees and vibrated in my bones, and felt like both a summons and a declaration. The other wolves joined him, their voices rising in a chorus that shouldn't have been beautiful, but was. And as I stood there, surrounded by predators who should have torn me apart, I felt more at home than I ever had in my father's house. Something was coming, something big and strange and impossible. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. The wolves led me deeper into the thornwood than I'd ever gone before. We walked for hours, moving through sections of forest that felt older, wilder, thick with a kind of magic I'd only heard about in children's stories. The trees here were massive, their trunks wider than houses, their branches creating canopies so dense that even the full moon barely penetrated. My wolf. I'd started thinking of him that way, though I had no right to. stayed close to my side. The others ranged around us in a protective formation that felt military, practiced. They weren't just a pack. They were something more organized, more deliberate. We emerged into a valley I'd never seen on any map, and there, nestled against the mountainside, was a town. Not a village like mine. This was something else entirely. Stone buildings with steep roofs, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. Streets lit with lanterns that burned with flame that looked silver instead of gold. And people, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, moving through those streets with purpose and grace. Except they weren't just people. As we got closer, I saw them change. A woman carrying firewood shifted mid-step, her form blurring into that of a massive brown wolf before changing back. Two men arguing near a well transformed together, their voices becoming growls, then human speech again, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My legs stopped working. I stood frozen at the edge of the valley, my brain trying to process what my eyes were seeing. Werewolves. Shapeshifters. Creatures from stories meant to scare children into behaving. They were real. My wolf nudged my leg gently with his head, a gesture that felt reassuring. It's okay. You're safe. This is insane, I whispered. This is completely insane. But even as I said it, pieces were clicking together. The intelligence in his eyes, the way he'd understood me, the dreams of a man with golden eyes. He wasn't just a wolf. He was someone who became a wolf. We continued down into the valley. People, wolves, whatever they were, stopped to watch us pass. I felt their eyes on me, heard whispers following in our wake. Some looked curious. Others looked hostile. All of them looked shocked to see a human walking among them. The wolves led me to the largest building in the town, a hall made of dark wood and stone that radiated authority. Guards stood at the entrance, two men with eyes that flashed gold in the lamplight. They looked at my wolf and immediately bowed their heads. That's when it hit me. The way the other wolves followed him, the deference in their body language. The way even now, in front of these guards, everyone was waiting for his signal. He wasn't just a wolf. He was their leader. The doors opened, and we walked into warmth and firelight. The hall was enormous, with a ceiling that soared 2 stories high, and walls covered in tapestries depicting wolves running beneath moons and stars. A fire roared in a hearth large enough to stand in, and there, near the fire, stood 3 people who turned to look at us with identical expressions of shock. Roman. A woman with long dark hair and eyes like amber stepped forward. She looked between my wolf and me, her expression shifting from surprise to something more complicated. "What have you done?" My wolf, Roman apparently, made a sound low in his throat, and then he changed. I'd seen the others do it from a distance, but up close it was something else entirely. His form blurred, shifted, bones and muscle rearranging in ways that should have been horrifying, but somehow weren't. In less than 3 seconds, where a massive black wolf had stood, there was now a man. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and black hair that fell to his collar. His face was all sharp angles and hard lines, handsome in a way that felt dangerous. And his eyes, even in human form, burned gold. He was also completely naked. I spun around, my face burning hot enough to start fires. "Roman, for the love of..." The woman's voice was exasperated. "We have a guest. Put on some clothes." "She freed me from a trap," Roman said, and hearing his voice for the first time felt like a punch to the chest. It was deep, rough, like gravel and honey mixed together. "She saved my life when she should have left me to die. She survived a week in the Thornwood during the worst storm in 30 years. And she came when I called her. So you brought a human here?" A man stepped forward, older, with gray streaking his dark hair and scars crossing his face. "To our sanctuary? Have you lost your mind? Careful, Dane." Roman's voice dropped into something that vibrated with warning. "Remember who you're speaking to." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "My king." Dane's tone was measured now, respectful, but not backing down. "The laws exist for a reason. Humans cannot know about us, the exposure risk." "I'm aware of the laws," I wrote, Roman said. "I'm also aware that she's not a risk." "How can you possibly know that?" "Because," Roman said, and I could hear him moving closer behind me. "She's my mate." The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear my own heartbeat. "That's impossible," the woman breathed. "Human mates haven't manifested in over a century. The bloodlines are too diluted now, the connection too weak. And yet here she is. Roman's voice was quieter now, but no less powerful. I felt it the moment she touched me. The bond snapped into place like it had been waiting for her my entire life. I finally turned around, keeping my eyes very deliberately on his face. Someone had thrown him pants at least, though his chest was still bare, covered in old scars that told stories of violence survived. "Mate?" I managed to croak out. "What does that mean?" Roman looked at me, and the intensity in his golden eyes made my knees weak. "It means you're mine," he said simply. "And I'm yours. It means we're bound together by something deeper than choice, stronger than magic. It means that from the moment you freed me from that trap, my wolf recognized you as the other half of his soul. That's..." I struggled to find words. "That's crazy. I don't even know you. I don't know what you are, or what this place is, or..." "I know." His voice gentled. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you're scared. But I also know what I felt, and I know what my wolf tells me. You're not here by accident." The woman stepped forward, her expression softer now. "I'm Sienna," she said. "Roman's second in command and oldest friend. The grumpy one is Dane, head of our guard. And the quiet one hiding in the corner is Finn. He handles our external relations." I glanced over and saw a younger man with light brown hair watching us with wide, fascinated eyes. "This is..." Sienna gestured around the hall. "This is Silverpine, our home, the last free werewolf sanctuary in the Northern Territories, and Roman is our alpha king, the leader of our pack and protector of our people. A king," I repeated numbly. "Not by choice," Roman said with what might have been dark humor. "But yes. And you think I'm your... mate? Your queen?" "I don't think. I know." I felt hysterical laughter bubbling up in my chest. A week ago, I was the worthless daughter my family abandoned in the woods. Now I was standing in a secret werewolf town being told I was destined to be their queen. "I need to sit down," I said faintly. Roman was beside me in an instant, his hand on my elbow, guiding me to a chair near the fire. His touch sent warmth shooting up my arm, and I yanked away instinctively. He looked hurt, just for a second, before his expression smoothed into something more neutral. "I know this is a lot," Sienna said gently, pulling up a chair beside me. "Trust me. Even growing up in this world, the concept of true mates felt like a fairy tale. But Roman wouldn't lie about this. He can't. The bond doesn't allow for deception. What happens now?" I asked, looking between them. "Do I have a choice in this?" "You always have a choice," Roman said firmly. "The bond might exist, but that doesn't mean you're obligated to accept it. You can walk away. I'll have someone escort you back to your village with enough supplies to last the winter, and you'll never hear from us again. But..." I could hear the unspoken word hanging in the air. "But it will hurt," he admitted. "For both of us, rejecting a mate bond is like tearing out a piece of your soul. It's not fatal, but it's not pleasant either." I looked at him. Really looked at him for the first time. Past the impossible beauty, past the power that radiated from him like heat from a fire. I looked at his eyes and saw the same loneliness I'd seen in the wolf, the same isolation. He was a king, surrounded by people, responsible for hundreds of lives. And he was completely alone, just like I'd been. "Can I have time?" I asked quietly. "To think about this? To understand what's happening?" "Of course." Roman nodded. "Take all the time you need. Sienna will show you to a guest room. You're safe here. I give you my word." As Sienna led me from the hall, I looked back once. Roman stood by the fire, watching me leave with an expression that made my chest ache. He looked like someone watching their only hope walk away. And the worst part was, I wanted to turn back. The room Sienna brought me to was more luxurious than anywhere I'd ever slept. A massive bed with furs and blankets piled high. A fireplace already crackling with warmth. Windows that looked out over the valley, showing the town below glowing with silver lamplight. There was even a bathing room attached, with a copper tub and soaps that smelled like pine and honey. "I'll have food sent up," Sienna said, lingering in the doorway. "And clean clothes. You're about my size, so they should fit well enough." "Thank you," I said, still feeling like I was moving through a dream. She hesitated, then stepped back inside, closing the door behind her. "Can I give you some advice? Woman to woman. Not second in command to potential queen? I nodded, too overwhelmed to do anything else. Roman is a good man, she said quietly. I've known him since we were children. He became Alpha King at 19 when his father was killed defending our borders. He spent the last 8 years holding our people together through threats, politics, and attacks that should have destroyed us. He's strong, fair, and fiercely protective of those he considers his. But I could hear it coming. But he's also been alone for a very long time. Kings don't get the luxury of vulnerability. He has advisors, friends, loyal wolves, but no one he can truly let his guard down with. No one who sees him as just Roman, not the Alpha King. She met my eyes steadily. A mate bond would give him that, someone who's his equal, not his subject. Someone who chose him, not the crown. I didn't choose anything, I said. This just happened to me. I know. And that's terrifying. Believe me, I understand. Her expression softened. But from what Roman told us, you made a choice in that forest. You chose compassion over safety. You chose to help something that could have killed you. That's the kind of person we need leading beside him. After she left, I sat by the window and watched the town below. People, wolves, moved through the streets with easy familiarity. Children played in the square, their laughter carrying on the cold air. I saw them shift between forms like it was breathing, like it was the most natural thing in the world. This was a whole society I'd never known existed, a whole world hidden in the mountains, living by rules I didn't understand. And they wanted me to be part of it, me, the worthless daughter, the abandoned girl who couldn't even start a fire without 4 tries, the girl who'd saved a king without knowing it. I spent 3 days in Silverpine learning. Sienna became my guide and unexpected friend. She showed me the town, introduced me to people who ranged from welcoming to suspicious. She explained their history, how werewolves had once lived openly among humans, until fear and violence drove them into hiding, how packs scattered across the world, but many fell to hunters, or chose to integrate, losing their wolf nature over generations. Silverpine was different. They'd managed to stay hidden, stay strong, stay together. We have about 300 wolves here, Sienna explained as we walked through the market. Some are born to it, bloodline wolves whose families have been shifters for centuries. Others are turned, humans who were bitten and survived the change. It's rare, but it happens. And Roman? I asked, accepting a honey cake from a vendor who looked at me with more curiosity than hostility. Bloodline. Royal bloodline, actually. His family has led the northern packs for generations. She smiled slightly. He was born to be a king, whether he wanted it or not. I saw him sometimes, from a distance. Walking through the town, people bowing their heads as he passed. Meeting with advisors in the Great Hall, training with the guards in a courtyard, moving with lethal grace that made my breath catch. He never approached me, never pushed, but I felt his eyes on me constantly. That strange pull in my chest, the bond, I was learning to call it, grew stronger every day. Sometimes I'd turn a corner and find him there, like my body knew where he was before my mind did. On the 4th day, Finn found me in the library, a circular room in one of the towers filled with books and scrolls and maps. "The king requests your presence," he said formally, though his eyes were kind. "If you're willing." My heart jumped into my throat. "Where?" "The Northern Overlook. He said he'd like to show you something." I found Roman standing at the edge of a cliff that overlooked the entire valley. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple that seemed almost unreal. "It's beautiful," I said quietly, coming to stand beside him. "This is why we fight so hard to protect this place," he said, his voice low. "Every wolf here has lost something to get here. Family, homes, old lives. This is our sanctuary, our last stand against a world that would destroy us if they knew we existed." "Sienna told me about the hunters," I said, "about how your father died." His jaw tightened. "They came in the night, 20 men with silver weapons and wolfbane poison. They killed 16 of our people before we drove them back. My father died buying time for the rest to escape." He paused. I was 18, barely more than a boy, suddenly responsible for 300 lives and a legacy I didn't feel ready to carry. But you did it anyway. I didn't have a choice. He looked at me then, and I saw the weight he carried in those golden eyes. Just like you didn't have a choice when your family abandoned you. Just like you didn't have a choice when you found me in that trap. But you chose how you responded. You chose courage over fear, compassion over self-preservation. I was terrified, I admitted. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. He shifted slightly, turning to face me fully. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me, okay? If the mate bond didn't exist, if I was just a man you'd met, not a king, not a wolf, not someone fate said you belonged with, would you want to know me? The question caught me off guard. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I thought about the wolf who'd brought me food when I was starving, who'd guarded me while I slept, who'd looked at me like I mattered when no one else ever had. I thought about the man who'd spent 8 years protecting people who depended on him, who'd given me space and time when he could have demanded answers, who stood here asking me what I wanted instead of telling me what I owed him. Yes, I said softly. I think I would. Something in his expression cracked open. Hope and relief, and something that looked almost like pain. I'm terrified, I continued. I'm a human in a world of wolves. I don't know your customs or your politics. I can't shift into another form or fight off threats. I'm just me. The girl my own family didn't want. They were fools, Roman said with sudden intensity. Blind, stupid fools who couldn't see what was right in front of them. What do you see? The question came out as a whisper. He stepped closer, and I felt that pull in my chest strengthen until it was almost painful. I see someone who survived what would have killed most people. I see someone with a heart brave enough to save a predator. I see someone who could have demanded riches or revenge when she learned she'd saved a king, but instead asked for time to think. He lifted his hand slowly, giving me time to pull away, and gently tucked a strand of my pale hair behind my ear. I see my mate, my equal. The person I've been waiting for without knowing I was waiting. I don't know how to be a queen, I said, my voice shaking. Then it's lucky you'll have a king to teach you. His thumb traced along my cheekbone, and I felt that touch everywhere, like lightning through my veins. If you want to learn, if you want to stay, the choice is yours. It will always be yours, but I'm asking, please stay. I looked up at him, this impossible man who was somehow mine by fate's design, and felt something settle in my chest, something that felt like coming home after a long, cold journey. What happens if I say yes? I asked. Then we take it one day at a time. You learn about our world. I learn about you. We figure out what this bond means together. He smiled slightly. And eventually, when you're ready, we complete the mating bond. What does that involve? A ceremony, witnesses, and, he hesitated, a mark. I would bite you here. He gestured to the junction of my neck and shoulder. And you would bear my mark. It tells every wolf who sees you that you're mine and under my protection. That harming you means war with me. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with fear. And if someone challenges that, I asked, then I remind them why I'm king. His voice dropped into something darker, more dangerous. No one will harm you, not while I breathe. I believed him. Standing there with the sunset behind him and power radiating from every line of his body, I believed he would burn the world down to keep me safe. I need more time, I said finally. But I'm not saying no. I'm saying not yet. That's all I can ask for. He stepped back, giving me space even though I could see how much it cost him. Stay in Silverpine, learn about us. And when you're ready, if you're ready, I'll be here. Barum, as we walked back to the town together, side by side but not touching, I felt that pull in my chest singing. I was walking toward something, not running away anymore, and for the first time in my life, I was walking toward a future I actually wanted. 2 weeks in Silverpine changed me in ways I couldn't have imagined. I learned their language, not just the words, but the subtle body language that wolves used to communicate, the tilt of a head that meant respect, the exposure of throat that meant trust. The way eye contact was a challenge unless you were equals or family. I learned their history through hours in the library with an elderly wolf named Iris, who remembered when packs still lived openly among humans. She told me stories of partnerships and betrayals, of the wars that drove them into hiding, of the hope that someday they might walk in the sun again without fear. I learned to defend myself. Dane, despite his initial hostility, turned out to be a surprisingly patient teacher. He handed me a wooden practice knife and taught me where to strike to make even a larger opponent think twice. "You'll never beat a wolf on strength," he said, circling me in the training yard. "But you're small and fast. Use that. Fight dirty. Survive first. Win second." I learned about the bond from Sienna over tea one afternoon. "It's not like human marriage," she explained. "It's deeper, more primal. Mated wolves can feel each other's emotions across distances. They're stronger together. Literally. Roman's wolf is more stable when you're near. Haven't you noticed?" I had. I'd noticed how tension seemed to bleed out of him when I entered a room, how his eyes would track me without conscious thought, how the aggressive edge that sometimes colored his interactions with challengers softened when I was present. "What about me?" I asked. "I'm human." "How does it affect me? That's the mystery," Sienna admitted. "Human mates are so rare, we don't have much documentation. But from the old stories, human mates often developed gifts, enhanced intuition, sometimes minor healing abilities, ways of connecting with the pack that went beyond normal human perception." She studied me carefully. "Have you felt anything unusual?" I thought about the dreams that still came every night. Roman in both forms, calling to me, reaching for me. I thought about how I sometimes knew where he was in the town without looking, how I could feel his emotions bleeding through that strange connection between us, frustration during council meetings, satisfaction after training, loneliness late at night when he thought no one could sense it. "Maybe," I said quietly. But I also learned that Silverpine wasn't perfect. There were wolves who resented my presence, who saw me as a weakness, a human contamination in their bloodline. I heard the whispers when I walked through the market, saw the hostile glances from some of the older wolves. One afternoon, a woman named Vera cornered me near the blacksmith's forge. "You think you can just walk in here and take what you haven't earned?" She was tall, powerful, with copper-red hair and eyes that flashed with anger. "Some of us have been here our whole lives, loyal to Roman and his family. And you show up for 2 weeks and suddenly you're going to be our queen." "I didn't ask for this," I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. "None of us asked for a human mate," Vera shot back. "The bond is supposed to make us stronger. What do you bring? You can't shift. You can't fight. You're a liability. That's enough, Vera." Roman's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He'd appeared from nowhere, moving with that unnatural silence. "You will show respect, or you'll answer to me." Vera's eyes dropped immediately, her body language shifting to submission. "My king, I meant no disrespect to you. Then don't disrespect what's mine." His voice was cold, dangerous. "She is under my protection. Challenging her is challenging me. Do we have an understanding?" "Yes, Alpha." Vera backed away, but not before shooting me a look that promised this wasn't over. After she left, Roman turned to me. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." His jaw was tight. "I won't have my people making you feel unwelcome." "She's not wrong, though," I said quietly. "I am human. I am different. Some of them will never accept that. Then they'll learn." He softened slightly. "Change is hard for wolves. We're territorial, traditional. But they'll come around when they see what I see." "What do you see?" He looked at me with those golden eyes that seemed to burn right through all my defenses. "I see someone who hasn't run despite having every reason to. Someone who's trying to understand a world completely foreign to her. Someone who's braver than she knows." He paused. "I see my future, if you'll have me." My heart was pounding. That pull in my chest was so strong now, it was almost painful, like a rope connecting us, pulling tighter every day. "Roman, wait." He held up a hand. "Before you say anything, there's something you need to know, something I should have told you sooner." The seriousness in his voice made my stomach drop. "What?" "The hunters who killed my father, they're getting bolder. We've had reports of them moving through the territories, asking questions, tracking rumors. He met my eyes. If they find Silverpine, they'll come in force. And they won't show mercy to anyone, wolf or human, associated with us. You think they're close? I think it's only a matter of time. His hands clenched at his sides. Which is why I need you to understand. Staying here, accepting this bond, it puts a target on your back. The humans you grew up with would see you as a traitor. The hunters would see you as leverage against me. It's dangerous, and it's only going to get more dangerous. Are you trying to talk me out of staying? I'm trying to give you all the information so you can make a real choice. He stepped closer. I want you to stay. My wolf wants you to stay. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to bind you to me so thoroughly that you could never leave. But I won't trap you. I won't let you choose me without knowing what you're choosing. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who was a king, a wolf, a warrior. Who'd been alone for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen. Who was offering me not just a bond, but a choice. A real choice. I thought about my old life, the village where I was invisible, the family who'd abandoned me, the future that held nothing but more of the same. Being small, unwanted, taking up as little space as possible. Then I thought about Silverpine, about Sienna's friendship and Dane's grudging respect, about Iris's stories and Finn's shy smiles, about learning to fight, to read, to exist without apologizing for it, about Roman, who looked at me like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. I'm scared, I admitted. I'm terrified of not being enough, of letting you down, of failing these people who are risking everything by accepting me. Then you'll fit right in, Roman said softly, because I'm terrified every single day that I'll fail them. That's what leadership is, being scared and doing it anyway. I stepped forward, closing the distance between us. You said that once before, in the forest. I did. His hand came up slowly, cupping my face with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with his size. I also said you were brave. I meant it then. I mean it now. Ask me again, I whispered. Ask you what? Ask me to stay. His breath caught. Will you stay? Will you be my mate, my queen, my partner? Will you stand beside me and help me lead these people into whatever future we can build together? I thought about the wolf in the snow, about golden eyes and impossible kindness, about the pull in my chest that felt like coming home. Yes, I said. I'll stay. The sound he made was almost inhuman, relief and joy and need all mixed together. He pulled me against him, and I felt the bond between us explode into something massive and warm and right. When? He asked, his voice rough against my hair. When can we complete the bond? Tonight, I said, surprising myself. If that's what you want. I don't want to wait anymore. The ceremony was held under the full moon in the great hall. The entire pack gathered, 300 wolves filling the space, their eyes glowing in the firelight. I wore a dress Sienna had helped me into, deep blue fabric that made my pale hair look almost silver. Roman stood at the center, wearing formal clothes I'd never seen on him. Black leather and silver clasps, his hair pulled back, his eyes burning gold. Dane performed the ritual, speaking words in a language I didn't fully understand but felt in my bones. He bound our hands together with a strip of leather, tied knots that represented promises. Do you, Roman, Alpha King of the Northern Packs, take this woman as your mate? To protect, to honor, to bind your life to hers in this world and whatever lies beyond? I do. His voice rang through the hall. Do you? Dane paused, looking at me. What name do you choose to take? I hadn't thought about it, but standing there, looking at Roman, feeling the bond humming between us, I knew. Elena, I said. The name my grandmother had whispered once when I was small, saying it meant light. My name is Elena. Do you, Elena, take Roman as your mate? To stand beside, to challenge, to bind your life to his in this world and whatever lies beyond. I looked at Roman and saw my future in his eyes. I do. The hall erupted in howls, joyous, wild, accepting. Even Vera was howling, swept up in the moment. Roman pulled me close, his hand sliding to the back of my neck. This will hurt, he whispered, but only for a moment. I trust you, I said. His teeth sank into the junction of my neck and shoulder, and pain blazed through me, sharp, bright, overwhelming. but beneath the pain was something else. Power, connection. The bond snapping into place like a lock finding its key. When he pulled back, his mouth was bloody, his eyes wild. The mark on my neck burned with heat that spread through my entire body. And I felt everything. His love, his relief, his joy, his wolf howling in triumph. I felt the pack around us, their acceptance flowing through the bond like a current. I felt myself changing, not physically, but fundamentally. Becoming something more than just human, becoming part of something larger. Mine, Roman growled. Yours, I agreed. And you're mine. Always. Weeks turned into months. The hunters never found Silverpine. Roman's scouts made sure of that, redirecting them, leaving false trails, protecting our home. I learned to be a queen, not the kind from fairy tales, but the real kind. Settling disputes, organizing supplies for winter, listening to concerns and finding solutions. The wolves who doubted me slowly came around. Even Vera eventually approached me with grudging respect. You're tougher than you look, she said one day, after I'd mediated a particularly nasty territorial dispute. I can admit when I'm wrong. You're good for him. Good for us. I found my gifts, like Sienna predicted. I could sense when pack members were hurt or troubled, could ease tensions with just my presence, could feel threats approaching before they materialized. Roman called me his secret weapon. I called him insufferable. We were happy. 6 months after the mating ceremony, I stood on the northern overlook at sunset. Roman's arms wrapped around me from behind. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Giving up your old life. I thought about the girl who'd been abandoned in the forest, who'd been invisible and unwanted. Then I thought about the woman I'd become. Queen of wolves. Mate to a king. Part of a family that had chosen me as surely as I'd chosen them. Never, I said. That girl in the forest? She was waiting to become this person. She just needed someone to see her first. I saw you, Roman murmured against my hair. From the moment you knelt in the snow to free me, I saw exactly who you were. A fool who saved a wolf, a queen who saved her king. Below us, Silverpine glowed with silver light. Our home, our people, our future. I'd been abandoned by my family and saved a wolf in the snow. I hadn't known he was a king, but he'd known exactly what I was, his salvation, his mate, his home, and I'd found mine in him.